Hey, good evening. Hope you're having a good, what day is it? Wednesday? Yeah, Tuesday, we finally kicked out that moisture, and you can see the sky looks a lot drier. Flow coming out of the north here in Texas today, and we're left with these clear skies. And right at this moment, there's the live look outside showing just clear skies for a change. And the air does feel a little bit drier too. So let's head to the charts. There has been some thunderstorm action in Florida yet again. This view was from 7:28 this morning in the area just west of Fort Lauderdale there in the Everglades, showing what looks like it's got the appearance of a derecho here. Definitely a significant MCS here, and putting out a very large anvil here. And if we do a quick cross-section, we can take a look at that. And this will show you some of the structure. It's a little bit zoomed out there. Let me see if I can bring that up a little bit. Well, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see the main convective elements to the south, and then to the north. This is the big stratiform anvil, and this tends to have a lot of lightning, especially positive CGs, kind of like in that area. So, yeah, if you're out there, definitely a lightning risk, even though the storm intensities are not that high. And I did see one question come across about cross-section orientation from Carl there. You can pretty much do it however you want. It's good to go. A lot of times I start with the mean low-level flow, kind of like what I was doing right there from southeast to northwest. But you also have upper-level flow, which goes the other way, so sometimes it may be appropriate to draw it the other way. But generally, we're looking at the updraft structure, and that would be one way of doing it right there. Let me do one more here. Storm inflow from southeast to northwest. And that shows a little bit more of the structure there, and definitely kind of a shallow appearance to the cumulonimbus clouds here. A few tops, well, some of them, yeah, making it up to about 40,000, maybe even 50,000, but the heavier convective elements way down low there, under 20,000, kind of surprising, but that's Florida weather for you. Always something different. Let's take a look at the velocities this morning, because Ryan Toomey's did mention that there was some possible land spout activity there, or maybe some leading edge convective or some leading edge vortices. So we're looking at probably something like that happened. Let me see if I can bring that up, and if we zoom in, this is definitely the quadrant of the storm where we would expect that. You can see I'm looking. Let me zoom this out again, okay? So there's the main storm structure right there, and it's mostly moving this way. Let me confirm that real quick. Okay, it's mostly going east. Okay, so this is kind of like the apex of that bow echo, and the main risk for those leading edge vortices is probably going to be in this area right here on the left quadrant, and then the other risk area is going to be the bookend vortices back here. And indeed, on that north part of the storm, whoop, got to change the cursor to panning mode. And if we bring up that velocity, looks like some very strong outbound velocities from the radar in that direction right there. And these velocities are up to about 52 knots there. Let me put a dot right there on that spot right there. And you can see that probably corresponds to some very strong outflow ahead of that storm there, concentrated right in that area. And exactly where those leading edge vortices would be, you would have to get in there and try to find the outflow boundary itself, and this is getting pretty far from the radar. The coverage isn't very good. I'd probably want to switch over to maybe the Melbourne radar. I don't know, that's kind of in between, so that's pretty difficult. And you've also got this large anvil kind of overlaying that area, so that's going to kind of disrupt the flow there. Closer to the radar, though, You can see what looks more like a more characteristic outflow boundary area right there, leading edge right there. We have our outbound velocities right there, and a little bit of inbound. Surprisingly kind of weak there, but this looks to be the outflow boundary in this area. And spectrum width not showing that too well, showing it a little bit here. Generally, we see the higher spectrum width, like in Texas, Oklahoma, tends to be very noisy in the inflow sector. Here we're seeing it more back in the precipitation area, maybe due to a mixture of precipitation forms back there, and maybe due to the tropical air back in Miami, the inflow being kind of clean, I would imagine. Okay, let's see what happened with this storm. You can see that bookend vortice kind of wrapping up there near West Palm Beach. And a quick look at the velocity. This is where we look for tight couplets coming together. And it looks like it starts out pretty tight there at the beginning. Then we see it kind of diminish as we go on, so a little bit less of a tornado risk at that point. I did get one photo from Ryan there, and these aren't, I'm not really too sure on the source of these, so I'm only going to show one real quick. But that would be one of the features that was spotted there. Could be precipitation, but more likely some sort of maybe gustnado going on there. And from Ryan, he said he was told it was a land spout by other spotters. Looked kind of like a tornado to him. The area is known for spouts coming off the lake vicinity. Radar scope had the tornado up on its signature as it passed west of Lion Country Safari. All right, so a little bit of weather there this morning. This was about 7 or 8 this morning. Okay, elsewhere around the country. Let me find my frames here. Texas under northerly flow here. And we've got the front all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Some sort of hybrid front outflow boundary way out there in the Gulf. And Texas itself, you can see the northeasterly flow here. And most of the convection limited to the high plains, eastern New Mexico, and the plains of Colorado there. But certainly some storm activity up there. Let me change the sector and try to focus that on Colorado here. Yeah, it looks kind of like a new boundary coming in from the north here. And you can see this bit of convergence right here. This was probably the convergence axis earlier today. It's probably a bit of fresh cold air coming down from the north and converging with this other stream of polar air coming from the Great Lakes area. Let's look at the upper level patterns, and we'll go to the 250 millibar chart. This is the general pattern up at about 34,000 feet. Still showing a long wave off the west coast right here, bringing moist southwesterly flow into British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. Still got ridging across the Great Plains, keeping most convection shut down here. That little trough we had over Texas this morning here, you can see it showing over Mississippi and Louisiana, gradually moving eastward. And behind that, we've got northerly flow coming in, and that's going to be kind of important over the next few days. 250 millibar chart, I had to go to College of DuPage because SPC decided this morning's charts were too old, but it didn't have the 0Z data up yet. So 250 millibar chart showing that we've pretty much displaced the subtropical jet. It's out of the picture. The main upper level low, kind of in this area right here. And then we've got a little bit of subtropical jet over Florida. And maybe that assisted with the storms a little bit. We've got 50 knots there this morning at Tampa, but only 25 there at Miami. Similar picture at 500 millibars. That's actually 300 millibars there. Skip on to 700, and we can see that upper level low pretty much vertically stacked there over Louisiana. And you can see the counterclockwise flow around that low pressure area. Some rather strong mid-level flow, and that probably helped augment the storms over Florida. You can see 30 knots there at Tampa and 40 at Miami and 35 at 35, yeah, that's 35 at Key West. So, bit of a low-level jet in place there. Probably similar to what we have here on the plains. Showing there at 850 also. This is actually where it would be acting like a low-level jet here at 850, 5,000 feet. And we're seeing lots of 30-knot flow here. Looks like even maybe 40. No, I think that's 35 there at Tampa. So very strong flow supporting those storms. Not too well ventilated in the upper parts of the storms, though. And loading up the satellite picture. Looks like we got a little bit of storm action there in Kansas. And remember, the flow aloft, not very strong, so we don't have very much severe weather potential there in that part of the plains. Probably the best severe weather potential would be confined to maybe the upslope area, eastern New Mexico here. And looks like some of those anvils here a little bit, maybe a little bit more well-developed in that area. Off to the east, there goes that low pressure area. It looks like tonight it is centered in this area here near the Florida Panhandle. And to really bring that out, we can use the water vapor imagery. And this is sensitive to around 700 millibars up to 350 millibars. So from about 10,000 feet up to about maybe 25,000 or so. So mid and some of the upper levels. And we can see there's a little bit of a dry intrusion there over the Gulf. This is air that has flowed southward across the plains and has been swept northwestward. And out ahead of that, you can see the storm action there, still getting it there. These very cold tops here in the Everglades and up towards the West Palm Beach area. It's like a lot of storm activity there in the Yucatan, Belize, Guatemala, southern Mexico. And with a strong northerly flow, I do wonder if maybe they're getting a little bit of a frontal boundary through this area. Maybe some sort of, you can definitely push down some boundaries from all this convection with this northerly flow. So maybe they've got a little bit of local enhancement there for severe weather in Mexico. But I don't recommend chasing in Mexico, especially with what's been going on there the past 10 years. Though I know Jim Leonard was considering it a while back there. Okay, let's see. Next picture. We'll look at the baroclinicity of the atmosphere, and we do this with this thickness chart. And this is a average of temperatures in the lowest 20,000 feet or so. So we're basically averaging the column in the lowest 5 kilometers, and we get these lines here. These lines here are thickness. And the lower the thickness, the colder the column. And you can see that the coldest air concentrated on New York. And then we've got some more cold air in the Gulf of Alaska. You can see that right there, just south of Kodiak. And this is pretty much your source of, well, not source region, but this is where the polar air mass is. You can pretty much directly identify it. So that right there, maritime polar air mass. And pretty much the same thing over the northeast U.S. And when you get in the very center of these air masses, if you have enough heating like we do during the summer months, we can get cold core thunderstorms. Not so much over the ocean. You don't get much solar insolation. Although if you have warm currents, yeah, you will still get cold core convection for sure. So I stand corrected there. There's our low pressure area at the surface. Out in the western Florida area, probably a little bit of a cold front dragging across the western Gulf, maybe a little bit of a warm front through here. That's where you would use surface analysis, but I think these MCSs have kind of like complicated the pattern at the surface, so it would probably be pretty hard to find that boundary. But on the large scale, yeah, there's definitely some baroclinicity in there, and that would support that low pressure area. Other fronts off the Atlantic coast right there. Looks like we've had some frontalysis in the west coast area. Earlier during the week, we saw a pretty strong frontal system. It was, I'll use green for that. It was out in the Washington and Eastern Oregon area. I think we saw probably about 5 or 6 of these thickness lines packed together, and we've had frontalysis of that boundary and not much left there. But we've got another system coming in that should arrive on the west coast in the next few days. And up to the north, the polar air source regions retreating up to the what's left of the ice pack, and there's a little polar front that's going to head east, and actually with the large scale pattern being out of the northwest, that probably will make it into at least Quebec and Ontario. All right, we'll take a look at some soundings. We did have that thunderstorm activity in Florida, and this is what the soundings look like in Florida this morning. And we had some fairly steep lapse rates there. Not as steep as what we have on the plains, but for Florida, that's pretty significant, especially when you have a very moist profile like this, and you see the very strong moisture, about 18, 19 grams per kilogram. That's very potent, rich moisture. So in the morning hours, your lifted parcel is going to be like that. Definitely plenty of cape in there. Then you've got these strong mid-level winds. The only issue is that the winds are pretty strong all the way down, so that limits the helicity through that column. But down near the ground, of course, friction winds are only about 5 to 10 knots, maybe 15 there. So in the very lowest levels, yeah, you do pull in some storm relative helicity, and that can certainly be enough for supercells there. Let me update the radar, and we'll see what's going on there right now. And while that's loading, I'll take a look at a couple of other soundings. Fort Worth. You can see the effects of the dry air this morning. Very dry above 10,000 feet, and we've pretty much cleared out the low-level moisture. What's left of the moisture has pretty much been mixed into the upper parts of the atmosphere. Earlier, the moist part of the soundings looked like this, and you can see that's been kind of eroded over the past day or so. So if you try to lift that column, well, you've got all this capping to contend with. That's all convective inhibition and very little cape above that. So no thunderstorms in Texas, at least in our neck of the woods for today. And there's what we got going on in Florida. Just a big old MCS. Don't have any convective elements that stand out. There's a lot of competition, cell competition, and do see a little bit of a boundary right there. See if I can animate that. Yeah, see that pushing southward. That could be a potential area for redevelopment there, so forecasters will be keeping an eye on that. Looks like that's heading through the Miami area and pushing on south. See if we can see that on the velocity. Yep, you can see it a little bit here. See the red outbounds from the radar? And they contrast with the inbounds. The velocity is very noisy, so it's hard to look at actual magnitudes, but looks like maybe about 10 knots out and maybe about 12 in. So there you go. Fortunately, not too much severe weather going on there in Florida at this time. Okay, let's see here. I was going to talk a little bit about weather tools, but we got into this discussion about the Florida weather. I think I might have to reserve a lot of this for a workshop, but I can show you at least a couple tools. What I've been using here is GR Level 2, and this is Gibson Ridge software, and they've got a website there, and this is pretty much a very good radar viewer, and you can. I like looking at the Level 2 data. The Level 3 data, that's going to be more of your derived products from the radar, such as your storm identification algorithms, your MCS detection, and all that. I prefer kind of digging into the raw data, so I'll use this most of the time here. And you can see they've got all the dual pole stuff here. We probably should cover that here in one of these episodes. And of course, what I like using is these cross sections, and you saw a little bit of that from earlier. So that can be definitely handy for checking out your storm overhang. For actual surface analysis, I will use Digital Atmosphere a lot, and this is a program that I've written. So, yeah, that's Digital Atmosphere there, and if I load in data, this will give me a lot of control over how the surface data is displayed. So if I plot a map like this and I don't like the pressures being on there, I can pretty much go straight into here, go to the station plots, remove that. It's very easy to use, and then I can replot that. So it gives you a lot of control over how your maps look, and of course you can do the standard analysis fields like moisture. This keeps going off the edge here. Analysis, moisture, mixing ratio. And right now it's analyzing the field. I've got it on the most complicated setting, which is Cressman. And that uses kind of a sophisticated analysis algorithm to plot the moisture field. And don't worry about it. It is responding. It's just taking a little bit. And I'm trying to move the map at the same time. But it should be coming up here very shortly. I probably should have put that on a simpler field like Barnes or Nearest Neighbor. But anyway, it is working, and you can see that northeast flow coming across the Midwest there. And look at those dew points. Lots of 50s and 40s. Waiting for that last convergence to finish up here. Sorry about that. There it goes. And there's the mixing ratio field. And we can see a bit of a gradient there in the moisture as the dry air kind of filters southward. And that can be an indicator where the front might be. So we could probably suspect that as a location for the front. There's a couple of other programs that I use, and one of them is Meteorologist. Let's see if I can bring that up. That's a free satellite viewer. No, that's Sony Vegas. I don't need to show you that. That's my editor. Anyway, Meteorologist, that's a satellite viewer. It is loading up, and I've actually got a Meteorologist workshop. If you go back through my channel and search for Meteorologist, you can find a, I think, 45-minute program on how to pull in satellite data and how to slice and dice it. Anyway, while that comes up, that's probably a good time for me to look at chat. We got Andrew here and Carl. Sue M is here and Justin Poliam. And Justin, I appreciate the donation from last night. There's Carl asking about that question from earlier. Eddie W., Victor Cabo, Fun with Tech, Michael Burrell, Malcolm Byron. It's a new name there. Ryan says, getting hammered pretty good there today in Florida. Alexi checking in. Justin says, I'll say that the cross-sections and 3D views really help. Really help me learn. 85 degrees, 47% at Canyon Lake. Z-Murder 69, dry, still hot wherever Z-Murder is. Ryan responded to the email. I did get that. Mick, nice East Coast low here in Australia. And when we talk about Australia, what I like doing is just inverting the calendar months. So June 7th right now, June 6th. That would make it like December 6th down there. So they're getting into winter. Okay. This is the McItis program. I'll just show you this very briefly. This is what I'll use to display satellite data. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to use. What I do is I go to this Data Explorer, and I'll pick either Ginny East or Ginny West and connect to that. And basically what I'm showing you here is the fastest way to get satellite data in this program without getting lost in it. And in this case, we'll look at 1 kilometer data. And then it looks for the data, and I'm just going to pick the most recent here. Then I'm going to click Add Source. Then we get this other window for fields, and I'll pick either raw or brightness. I don't really notice a difference between the two. And then this is where it's really important. You have to go to this Advanced tab, and you have to set this all up correctly. And generally what I'll do is I'll click on this and set it to wherever it's showing in the center. And then I'll drag these over to 1, like that. And then I do Create Display at the bottom, and that's pretty much it. So it's pretty much that simple. So what it's doing is it's downloading 1 frame from the server, and there it is, right where I have the map. We zoom in, and you can see the thunderstorms going on across Nebraska and Colorado right now. Now, supposedly, we should be getting the GO16 data soon from these servers. I definitely don't think they have it in there yet. If this would be in the list, it would be 0.5 kilometer imagery. Very high resolution stuff. And all I see is 4, 8, 10 kilometer. I don't know who uses this 10 and 24. It's pretty much useless for forecasting. I always go to either the 1, 2, or 4 kilometer images. So anyway, that's how to use McItis there. And then the other tool that I'll sometimes use is Rayab, and maybe I'll just show you that real quickly, and then we'll move on and do the forecast. Rayab is written by John Shuchuk, and basically it's a sounding viewer program, and it will also download the data. So if I go download data and then pick one of these sites. Hang on a second, I don't know if you guys are here. I saw a message saying that the stream was interrupted, probably from all this downloading, so just give me a second, wait for things to come up. And I see stream resumed. Okay, yeah, this is what happens when we mess around with software tools. So I'll just show you this real quick and then we'll press on. Doesn't want to display the data for some reason. Open sounding. Well, anyway, yeah, I'll give it one more try here, see if I can get it working. Okay. Well, that was fun. I had to switch over from the backup to the primary YouTube server. I guess it decided to kick us off here. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, we're looking at Rayob, and I think that's where we lost the feed. And we were going to look at some of the current data. And I was having problems on the Rayob side. But anyway, when Rayob is working, you can use this to pretty much do anything with these soundings. You can even modify them, check on all kinds of instability options, and so on. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and move on to the forecast. And let me clear out my windows here. Checking on the chat here. Let's see. John Booma. Good evening. All clear, if not slightly cool day here in the Chicago suburbs. Brett says raining, 56 degrees there. Ryan reporting a freight train of rain, wind, minor hail stretching from Key West up through West Palm Beach. Sarah Wood in Indiana, cooler and drier there. Got up to the mid-70s today. And Ryan says most of the moisture in the Gulf of Mexico from the remains of Tropical Storm Beatriz. Yeah, appreciate that. That's good to know there. Those moisture values were definitely up there. Mike Wan checking in. Ryan says Beatriz made landfall a few days ago on Mexico's west coast and traversed over Mexico into the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, somehow we missed Beatriz. I guess that went to the south of all these frames. But, yeah, it reemerged into the Gulf and fed the Florida storms. Ryan says more storms the next 48 hours, slowly tapering by Thursday night. Massive flight delays ongoing there at Miami. Air Flight Traffic Control Center coordinated delays, cancellations. And Damon Winslow reports tornado on Mount Evans west of Denver. That's that mountain you can climb to the top or drive to the top of. One of the 14,000 footers there. Tornado on Mount Evans. I bet there's some pictures on social media there. Ryan says he couldn't use GR Level 2 on the experimental dual-pole radar stations at Palm Beach or Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, that's too bad there. I don't know about the status of GR Level 2 and the experimental stations. In fact, I wasn't even really aware that they were online. Lloyd McCarter, first tune-in. Appreciate you joining it. Justin Pulliam saying hello. And then I'm scrolling down, and that's about the time we hit the stream problem. And Dwayne Ward says, cool and 64 there on the Delmarva. Warm coming up next week. Okay, so here's the conditions for tonight. We're looking at the high-resolution rapid refresh model. And this is where I like to look at the general pattern for tonight. And before I go into it, you can see low pressure here in the big country of Texas, higher pressure up in the Ozarks, and low pressure out over the Louisiana area. So that gives you an idea of the balance of the air masses. So we've got cool air coming down from the north. We've got low pressure over Louisiana here. So that's going to help complete a circulation into the Gulf like that. And then with this low pressure area, we're funneling some of the air this way here. So that could be significant for these storms here. So let's see what happens tonight. Okay, we got a MCS moving into Oklahoma. And looks like that decays during the sunrise hours. And remains over Oklahoma City and the Red River. Okay, so it looks like we got a bit of a northwesterly flow situation setting up. So we can take a look at the 850 millibar chart here. And this is showing dew point in green. This is from the NAM model. So this is the the patterns right now, and you can see there's this big chunk of moisture here. This is going to correspond to 50s dew points up at 5,000 feet. This is very deep moisture, and you can see that it's working this way here, north of that general low pressure area down here, probably some sort of heat low. And it looks like overnight, see how that works up into the Woodward, Dodge City area? You notice that we've got kind of an enhanced easterly component there. That's going to be the fuel for that northwesterly flow complex coming out of there. And that's how you get these northwesterly flow situation storms during the summer across the Central Plains. Sometimes they come down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's pretty rare. Sometimes we'll see that in August towards September. And then let's see here what happens tomorrow. By the time we do the webcast tomorrow night, we've got pretty deep southeasterly flow across the high plains, and looks like Texas itself starting to recover also. Yeah, look how strong that flow is by Thursday. We've got 25 knots there on the high plains. Bit of a low-level jet getting established. You can see that the moisture really starts kind of bulking up here from Amarillo up to Garden City. So, what does that mean in terms of the forecast here? Let's check it out. Let's bring up the GFS. For tomorrow night, when we do the webcast, Wednesday evening, it's going to be looking like this. High pressure over Illinois and low pressure out in the Gulf. So that's going to give us kind of a pattern kind of like that. Bringing in a pretty strong northerly component across the Mississippi River. That means a lot of drying and cooling in that area. Probably maybe some cool nights in that area. Don't have a return flow in Texas yet. You can see, if anything, we have offshore flow. But some remnants of that moisture making it up into the high plains, as we showed you. For Thursday, now we've got the return flow becoming established, and we're starting to tap this 70s moisture. Well, not quite. We still got a little bit of a northerly component there, but some moisture making it up into the Great Plains. Yeah, I'm wondering if some of that northerly flow there may be driving a wedge. I have to take a look at that. Okay, then for Friday, looking like this. Now we're starting to get some deeper return flow from the Gulf. You can see the effects of the evapotranspiration right here. 70s dew points showing up in Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. And the dry line getting reestablished. I don't know if this is going to be conducive for severe weather. That's going to depend on how much capping we have. We can pull up a forecast sounding here, see what that shows. Wow, very steep lapse rates. Look at that. Yeah, that would be like 3,000 Cape there. I do see a little bit of capping here, but it's kind of hard to nitpick at these models because the GFS, that is kind of a global model, and it doesn't really resolve the details of these vertical structures too well. So mostly we would just kind of go by pattern recognition here this far out. Okay, going into the weekend, let's see here. I think it's pretty certain that we'll have thunderstorms up in the northern plains up in this area. You can see a new baroclinic low coming out of northwest or the western Canadian area. There's that dry line right there. And we just continue bringing a conveyor belt of moisture northward, and dry line's going to be out in this area right here. How far north or south the storms are, that's going to depend mostly on the amount of capping we have. But I think we should be able to squeak some storms out of here. We're getting into the peak period of solar heating. Look at that deep moisture coming in from the Gulf. This is all mid-70s dew points. Really changing the pattern up here, and that's going to bring the sea breeze inland. And assuming we don't have too much ridging in Texas, that could be good for sea breeze thunderstorms here in Texas. If we are ridged out, though, then we're not going to get that. Anyway, new cold front coming in from the northwest there on Tuesday. Now that's going to bring some potential for thunderstorms probably around midweek, around the 13th or 14th. Through Oklahoma, probably severe weather there. Good chance for that. Then later during the week, we build in that southerly flow. And this is when we start needing to look at the upper level charts. I don't know how many of you were here last summer, but we looked a lot at the upper level charts, the 250 millibar, and tried to find the positions of the ridge, because that pretty much shuts things down when we get into the middle of summer. But the moisture definitely making its way back up. And there comes another cold front plunging southward. Yeah, that's baroclinicity there for sure. So summer is not quite started here yet. I think we're going to have a few opportunities, a few windows here for severe weather, at least probably through the third week of June. Okay, looking at chat here, let's see. 9 inches of rain at the office where Ryan is in Florida. Thomas says that's pretty wild, guessing the patterns allowed a lot of storms to train across your area. Rain gauges around South Florida showing higher levels of rainfall in certain areas. I do wonder what the precipitation totals look like. That's level 3 data. I'm going to have to go to College DuPage for that, but we can pull that up real quick. Let's see. Let's go to COD weather. And let's see, we'll go to their radar page. And you can use JR level 3 for this too. In fact, I probably should have done that. Go to NextRad sites and click on Miami there. Then we just go to their product menu and pull up the storm totals. So there's your storm totals right there for Florida. I see a lot of 10 and 11 inches right here off the coast. And then inland from, I guess that's around Fort Myers, some 9 to 10s coming all the way to West Palm Beach there. All right, give me just a second here. I've got to queue up one of my other windows. Okay. One last look at chat here. Let's see. Ryan saying Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach. Yep. Damon says been a slow chase season. Indeed, it has. I was hoping to do some all-afternoon storm weathercasts and talk about all the chase action, but there just has not been much of that at all. You can see we're pretty much underneath this ridge. I'll show you the dynamics here. Let me see if I can show you the times up here at the top. Yeah, so June 6th, June 7th, you can see that big upper level. This is a mid-level ridge here. And that's pretty much built up through the northern Rockies, through June 9th, through the weekend. But a few waves rotating around there, you can see that right there. So there will be the potential for some northwesterly flow situations. These are basically shortwave troughs, and those can be enough to turn the flow southerly in the low levels ahead of these waves, and that can get better storm inflow and help feed some of these storms that get going that are triggered by these shortwaves here. So it looks like one good shortwave moving through Kansas and southern Colorado on Thursday. Probably some rain chances going up for Friday in the southern plains there. Okay, I think that's about all I got for now. I appreciate you all watching. And please be sure to join us tomorrow. If you have any suggestions for the webcast, just email them to me on the weathergraphics.com site. And while you're there, pick up some books if you can. That would be appreciated. In any case, we will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.